Hello there, and welcome back to Beyond the Compass, where travelers and the paranormal meet at the crossroads. I am your host, Eric, and today I have two very special guests with me that I've been looking forward to talking to for quite some time. They are Stephen and Fred Garza-Guzman, the dynamic duo behind Curious Twins Paranormal, a San Antonio-based company that explores the paranormal side of history through immersive tours. Stephen and Fred have crafted a unique approach to dark tourism with their company, offering ghost tours, cemetery explorations, and true crime walks that reveal hidden stories within two of the country's most haunted locations, the Yorktown Memorial Hospital and Victoria's Black Swan Inn. Now, these two locations have captivated audiences on shows like Ghost Adventures, Destination Fear, and Jack Osbourne's Portals to Hell. But Stephen and Fred take a personal approach by sharing the true history and spirits behind these infamous sites. Fred, a psychic medium and practitioner of Mexican folk healing, is dedicated to helping others find peace through readings, cleansings, and a deep connection to the spirit world. Together, the Curious Twins team bring more than just stories. They offer experiences that connect people to their loved ones and the emotional layers of history. They've also launched a podcast, Curious Travels, a morbid travel guide, where they guide listeners through haunted destinations around the world. Join us as we delve into the world of dark tourism, the paranormal, and the importance of honoring spirits and history alike. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you very much.
I try to do my research.
Yeah,
So let's jump right into it. How did this all start for you? I mean, did you have some paranormal experiences when you were younger and that led you to this, or was it something that you just always had an interest in? What was the road to Curious Twins Paranormal?
Sure. Well, I'll go ahead and start. So for me, I've always really been into horror movies, gothic fiction, unsolved mysteries, things like that. Growing up, I had three older brothers who would try to scare me all the time. They would jump out of closets and things like that. And so at one point, I decided, I have to like just overcome my fears and explore kind of those darker themes. And so I did. So I just got fascinated with horror and dark fiction, and I wanted to really kind of expose myself to that and see like what is the most extreme thing that I could experience. And then when I met Fred, it was very much like finding somebody who was, very much into the things that I was into as well. So that's where kind of my story comes in, but I'll let Fred share as well.
yeah, I grew up kind of experiencing things as a kid. I think the first time I kind of experienced the paranormal experience, something was about probably at 4 years old. And after that, I continued to experience things. I was always very fascinated with ghost stories, with these kinds of things. And I grew up kind of a fan of, Texas ghost stories, especially. And there was a woman named Dosha Williams, and Dosha, she was kind of like a San Antonio a historian here, but she did a lot of stuff with ghosts, and she wrote a book called When Darkness Falls. And when I was a kid, I got to actually see her and do a reading of that book, and she signed my book, and that really kind of got me into the history, into wanting to also collect oral stories of haunts and these kinds of things, and folklore as well as haunts. And then just like true crime, and all of these things, Dosha really opened me into that world of, that it's interesting, and perhaps these stories that can help us to do better, for the future. And so, so we use ghost stories, and we use these things as tools to kind of remind humanity that, we can do better, maybe in the next generation.
There. So how did the idea of Curious Twins Paranormal come about for the two of you? Did you just say, hey, let's start a company one day, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is we love doing ghost tours and true crime walks and these kind of things. So we would travel, and we would do these things, and we'd go, different places in America, and we realized there's not a great representation of indigenous culture, even it being part of the story and the narrative. And it seemed like our ghost stories and our histories were kind of rooted back, generations ago. And we thought, hey, maybe we can bring a new voice in. Maybe we can kind of talk about these indigenous stories. We can also, bring to light these histories that are, kind of seldom told, and so I guess, for lack of better words, we went on tours and thought, hey, we can add to that. And that's kind
We
of
can
how
do
it's.
better than that.
I didn't say that. We can add to that.
But
Yeah.
I like that. It's the idea of like bringing the Mexican folklore and even the Native American. Because I'm both. I'm a Native American on my mom's side, Chickasaw out of Oklahoma. So anything that can bring in the folklore from either of those cultures, I mean, you're right. It just enriches the experience for everyone present. Now, you offer a variety of services beyond the tours, such as psychic medium readings and cleansings. So, how does this variety of services help the people connect with or understand the paranormal, would you say?
Yeah, one of the things that we do is, like, I try to use my gifts to, I guess, just to open up a conversation about spirit communication. And so when we do tours, when we do investigations, we will kind of set up in a very safe way, an introduction for people to communicate with spirit. And so that's one of the ways that I do it, or use that, and I think that for a lot of folks, it's very fascinating. And we've done these kind of these spirit demos, spirit communication demos or seances, whatever you want to call that. And I think that people have been kind of surprised by that. They're kind of just curious, and we've seen it be healing. We've seen somebody come through from the other side that they didn't expect, and get some kind of closure, or just kind of get some kind of
Wow.
connection. So I think that, that's how we try to use that, within the business. We try to incorporate both that communication, tradition, spiritualism, those kinds of things within what we do.
I like that. So, what would you say is one misconception people might have about ghost tours or paranormal tours in general that, like, you hope to change?
Yeah. One of the big things is cemetery tours. A lot of folks think that, we're trying to wake up the dead, and we're just kind of going out to a cemetery, and we're very annoying with these spirits. And a big part of what we do is preservation. We're talking about preservation, talking about preserving these cemeteries, as well as we're telling these ghost stories. But what we've made a tradition to go out to this one cemetery that has been targeted over and over for vandalism. We go out every
Oh, wow.
every Friday night. We try to go out there and do these tours, and it's not just that we're trying to just make a quick buck or anything, but the idea is that we're also occupying that cemetery. We're keeping people in it. We're keeping these stories alive, and we're keeping that a historical place that, hopefully is kind of free of vandalism.
And that,
And
and
so people think that, it's all evil, or it's all ghost or whatever, and it's way more. I think the idea is, honestly, respect.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's in a sense you're actively preserving the place, preserving history.
Yeah.
right, right. I
So,
think we also get a lot of people who think that we're going to be doing jump scares or we're going to just tell scary stories. And, while scary stories might be part of it, for us, the main goal is for people to come out of a tour having learned something new, new about themselves, about their city, about, how things happened in the past and how they can perhaps make a better future for themselves. So that is, we always think that it's not, ghost stories aren't just scary. They're informative and they're a wonderful way to get to know a city.
Yeah.
awesome. And that leads to my next question. So, your tours, I mean, it's not just the ghost tours. You cover ghost stories, true crime, and dark history. So, how do you decide which elements to include on the tour, and how do you balance history with the paranormal?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think over the years our tours have changed. We've kind of watched what people respond to, watch, that balance, how people respond to that. I've said we've rewritten our tours, I think, several times over the years to create some of that balance. But I think that we really want to kind of include information for somebody to understand that environment, whether it's a cemetery, whether it's a city. And so, a lot of what we're doing is very, like, environmental, and that's how we work in the history. That's how we work in those ghost stories, is that we're really trying to get somebody to understand the soil that they're on, and how that might connect to the darkness.
Wow, I like that. Wow.
Yeah, and I'll
S-
also add, definitely give credit to Fred for, doing the research and curating our tours. We, on one hand, definitely want to like cater to the public and see like what would they be interested in, but at the same time, we stick to our own ideas about equity and what is necessary for people to know and what is important for people to know. And so keeping those indigenous histories alive is really important to us. And that's always something that we try to include on every tour that we give.
So you ensure that it's not just the scary part, but you interweave the history behind it, the people that lived it.
Absolutely.
Wow. So now you run tours at like several locations, and the first one that always comes to mind for me is the Yorktown Memorial Hospital. It shuttered its doors sometime in the late '80s, if I'm not mistaken, and it was open for like 30 years. And what was unusual, it's not a huge. I mean, it's like 30,000 square feet, but in that 30-year history, they had like something like 2,000 deaths there, what I understand. So, what was your first experience like when you went there? Was it something you heard about? Was it a tour you were on, or and did you experience anything?
The very first time we went was actually was to kind of show it off for an investigation, and so we took people out there, we ran an investigation, and to be honest, like now that first investigation is almost 7 years ago now, I think, and it's a little
Wow.
bit of a blur. Over time, we've gotten more comfortable in the space. The space definitely has kind of a heavy, feeling to it. You want to add anything to
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
I think when we first started going there, there was definitely like a feeling, okay, like this is new, this is something different. Um, I think it was the first abandoned building that we had done like a professional tour and investigation of, or led it ourselves. And so there was like the professional aspect of, okay, what are the logistics of doing it? But as we have gone, maybe over 30 times in the last 7 years. We've gotten more comfortable with it and we know what to warn people about. As far as, maybe avoiding certain areas, or if you are, sensitive to spirit activity, you may want to, not provoke any spirit activity or anything like that. We try to share that with all of our tours, is that you want to be respectful. You want to you get the best responses when you are nice to spirits, and you don't do what they do on the TV shows.
Yeah, definitely. And by now, I mean, after all that time there, I'm sure the spirits of Yorktown are like, oh, it's Stephen and Fred. Yeah, they got their thing coming through. All right, your turn. Go over there. Um, so, I mean, I've been wanting to check it out for a while, but see, my thing is, I have two buddies, Nick and KJ. These guys are military veterans, Marines, Army Rangers. So, legit tough guys. And they're terrified to go to Yorktown with me. Something about possibly getting possessed. And I'm like, guys, that's a 50-50 chance. And the whole being held in midair by invisible hands, that more likely, but hey, it doesn't help my case. But these guys, yeah, I will drag them to Yorktown, I assure you. So now the chapel and basement at Yorktown are said to be the most active spots, with the basement tied to a love triangle between staff and patients that ended in a murder-suicide. And from what I understand, there's still bloodstains on the wall from that event. Do you find spaces with that kind of personal story of betrayal or violence have a stronger residual energy?
You know, I I would say it's complicated. Especially in a place like Yorktown, that there's a lot of people that go with that idea, with that story in mind. They add layers, they add all kinds of things to that space and residual energy. To be honest, I think it really is dependent on who goes in and out of the space, what that space is over the years. And, spaces can kind of transform and energy can transform, within 10 years. You can go into a space and it feels one way, and you go back 10 years later and it's a very different thing. And so, I would say that the space is creepy because it is a boiler room. It is, it's dark, it's dank. You know, uh, it's a place that animals go to die. We've actually found a lot of dead animals that go there. And
Oh,
raccoons, snakes, all kinds of animals that have went to this place to die. And I'm not really sure why, but
the
you know,
basement specifically?
the boiler room
Oh,
is
the boiler room.
where this incident took place in the basement. That's a place that we found several dead animals over the years. These kinds of things. So I'm not really sure how to explain that energy, but it changes. To be very honest, we've been in, and the energy is very almost just peaceful. You kind of just you're hearing cicadas that are coming in from outside. It's no big deal. And you go in another time and it feels like somebody's watching you. So it changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because from the photos I've seen, that place is like ideal for a horror movie. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's like,
there actually has been horror movies filmed in the hospital. So yeah.
yeah, and it's like it's not that far from where I live because I'm here in Austin, so that's probably like a couple hours from here. So,
That's yeah.
which is why I want to drag my friends there. Okay, they're terrified. I'm like, it'll be fun for me. Now, you also your other one of your other primary tours is Victoria's Black Swan Inn, and could you give me a little bit of backstory on that one?
Yeah, Victoria's Black Swan Inn, it is off the Salavo and Walsham Creeks. This was a place that, indigenous people very highly connected to. It's believed that there is indigenous connections with the land, including a burial mound that is there. The house itself, originally was part of a farm. It was part of the Bluebonnet Creamery. That continued to 1935, and then it took on kind of a new life when owners that were very rich and affluent moved there, and they were kind of the who's who of San Antonio. They were the Holbrook family, and they just kind of added a layer of mystery with untimely deaths, with all kinds of things. And before any of this even happened, it was also the site of a battle. It was part of Texas independence. The Battle of Salado was fought there on the grounds. We had 36 members of the Texians that died, and we also had 60 members of the Mexican army die on the land. So there's a lot of connection to trauma, to life, to indigenous people, to burial itself. So it's an interesting story.
So it's literally in the soil there.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So again, what was your first impression when you got there? I mean, was did you feel anything out of the ordinary, or I mean, what struck you about it?
Yeah, so the first time that I went was actually for a Gothic wedding that was taking place there. And I was definitely taken aback by kind of the beauty of the land. And that was what I most connected to. The second time that we went was for an investigation. Like we went with the group to investigate it, and we stayed pretty much overnight. And it was the middle of the night. It's a definitely a different feel that we had because none of the lights were on. We didn't see the beauty of the space. It was in darkness. So I definitely did have there were some vibes there that it was a creepy place, a place that didn't just belong to people but belonged to spirits as well. And as we've gone over and over again throughout the years, we've continued to learn so much, and we still do learn a lot about the space and the land there. And that's one of the things that we love about the place is that there's so many different histories. You have the indigenous history, the Texas history connected to the battle, the people living and dying there, and even the modern history of, people still living on that property and a family being there to this day.
So someone still lives there.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Now, I've read that some people say that the spirits there range from Jolene Woods to people who died on the battlefield back in the 1800s. Do you do you feel that spirits from different time periods seem aware of each other, or do they exist separately in some way?
I think in our encounters, I think there is very much a separation, as well as sometimes there are certain spirits that I believe interact with one another. So some spirits go oblivious to one another, and some connect. I think.
And have you had any kind of experiences that you felt related to the indigenous population, to the Native Americans that occupied the land?
Yeah, yeah, we have gotten drumming that has come through during sessions, during events, even hearing that we couldn't explain that sounded like it's just like a Native American drumming. We've also experienced things that we really couldn't like put our hands behind in the woods and off of the walls in the creek, especially things that slight movements. There have been times that we've been standing kind of in the wooded areas by the walls and have experienced footsteps around us and these kinds of things, even though we can't see anybody. So stuff like that.
Do you find yourself getting used to it at this point, or is that still you feel that cold chill, like, oh, what was that?
Um, I think that in a certain way we're kind of used to weird things happening, accepting of it very much. But it can still be very surprising, when things happen, and sometimes a guest will show us a photo that they get, and that's still surprising to
Hmm.
us. It kind of runs the gamut.
I feel like personally I'm a little bit more afraid of people, like living people, than spirits, because if we go to, places in the middle of the night, sometimes abandoned buildings, you never know who might be there, why they
Right.
might be there, and what their attitude might be toward other people being there as well.
All right. So, Fred, as a psychic medium, do you find that the spirits at Yorktown and and at Black Swan differ in personality or the intent from the spirits you've encountered elsewhere?
Oh yeah. I think I think a lot of what I encounter, very often at Black Swan Inn are, just kind of a different type of people. These are socialites. These are people, that probably even use different vocabulary than, the spirits at Yorktown at times. A lot of the spirits that we encounter, they were religious. A lot of them, some of them are nuns that we've encountered or postulants. So just really different kinds of people equals, I think, a different kind of spirit. We're all different, and I think that translates in the spirit world as well.
Hmm. Which would you say has more of a, for lack of a better word, more of a violent history between Yorktown and Black Swan?
Well, I think, you can't get much more violent than, a war,
Uh,
that
yeah.
spanned it a while. So I would definitely say, a battle site and, experiencing that at Victoria's Black Swan and is definitely a little bit more violent. A lot of what happened at Yorktown was unfortunately medical malpractice
Mm.
by a physician that was in his 90s and probably should have retired when he was in his 70s.
And it's,
So when we kind of look at those
wow.
things, we're not looking at, necessarily evil, malicious intent on certain deaths, whereas you do look at that, maliciousness when you're talking about war and you're aiming to win.
I see. So, do you feel that places like Yorktown and Black Swan are kind of a spirit magnet, or do they tend to hold on to the same ones?
I think that, well, Victoria's Black Swan Inn is kind of special. It sits on, a piece of land that is adjacent to two parts of two different creeks. And so you have a lot of water. You also sit on top of Edward Aquifer. You have a lot of energy in that area, burial mound. So I think that you just have some of the natural elements that cause some of that energy there. And to me, because of those creeks, because of that running water, because of that, um, that to me is like a Ouija board almost, like where Victoria's Black Swan, and it's very easy to host seances or spirit communication sessions there because very talkative. Whereas, in Yorktown, you really do have a lot of spirits that they'll come in and out. There's there's a bigger number, I think, of spirits that reside at Yorktown, and so I think kind of the spirit interaction is a little bit more in and out there, and I think that it can be pretty startling, and I've experienced some startling things over at Yorktown. But as far as that, really, that magnet for spiritual, energy and what I think will kind of remain almost always is definitely going to be Victoria's Black Swan. And, I think that Even if that house isn't there, in 100 years from now, there's still going to be some vibes that are attached with that land.
So the land, in a sense, could act as a beacon.
Definitely, that's the land. It definitely. I mean, it sits on a barrow mound. It sits in between these two creeks. It's in a place that we have indigenous people that utilize this area for thousands of years. It sits in a mecca of history and tradition.
So is the burial mound, I mean, is it, you know where it's at, where it's located on
Yeah,
the
the
property?
house sits exactly on top of that burial mound. You
Oh,
can actually,
wow.
if you're standing in front of the house, you look behind you, you can see it. You can actually see this incline. You can see that mound, as very visually. It's very easy to see, actually. Yeah,
Wow. I didn't know it was exactly on top of it. Woo.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's a that's a few bad movies right there.
I mean,
So,
it made an idea place to build a house. It's higher off the ground from the creek, so that's why they decided to build there.
wow, I wonder if they knew that ahead of time.
No, I don't think so.
And along the lines of movies and TV shows, both locations, Black Swan Inn and Yorktown, have been featured on a lot of different paranormal shows. Yet your tours offer a more personal, in-depth experience. So, what do you think guests take away from your tours that they couldn't get from watching on TV?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you are there at a location, you can feel the energy, and we also make it a point to provide a safe space. Like we make the space as safe as we can for people, so that they feel comfortable. They don't feel like they're being bombarded with spirit activity, and we give them, essentially rules of how they can interact. And I think with that, there's a little bit more comfort uh, in going to that place versus a like seeing a show or a movie, and it's very much, as much as these shows would like to display that they are not scripted, there is a scripted element to it,
Right.
and we really try to create a space that people can go and experience it and get in touch with the space and do so safely.
Right.
Yeah, I'd also like to add, I think that TV doesn't really give you all the senses.
Mhm.
And one of the unique things about Yorktown is that, it smells. There's different smells. And you don't get that from a television show. You're smelling raccoons that have went through the space at times. You're smelling sometimes things that you don't know where it comes from. It's damp. There is dust everywhere. So it really kind of puts you in this position of someplace that normally a lot of us don't go. We're going into a place that perhaps we're not supposed to be. And I think that is what's so different about the television and about, actually being in that space. You're kind of told you're not supposed to go in abandoned buildings, but we make it safe enough, like Stephen was saying, to come in. And, you get to see those clocks, you get to see how they stopped at one time and they never continued. And I think that is a pretty interesting thing.
So, what's been one of the more surprising emotional reactions you've seen from a guest on a tour?
Um, we've had experiences where, people have connected with the spirit. We have had people connect with their mom, that's crossed. We've had people connect with a dad, and, we've seen people, really move to a place of both gratitude and tears. And I think that that is a really special thing, whether it's, a second that somebody gets with that loved one that they've been missing, perhaps that, in an odd way, what we do, maybe it provides a little bit of closure and a safe place to interact with loved ones that might be on the other side.
Mhm. Yeah. I think also, sorry if I could add, I think for me, some of the most kind of startling reactions that I've seen are from people who claim to be skeptics, because we get the entire spectrum of like people who are true believers and experienced paranormal investigators to people who are dragged by those people. They come with them, and so we have gotten a lot of skeptics. And one instance comes to mind where there was somebody who was completely opposed to having any experiences, not believing it was true, and then ending up having paranormal experience and how profound it was for them. Not scary, but just moving in a way that it kind of shifted their worldview. And then they came back on several other tours and wanted to experience the paranormal and wanted to document it and learn more and understand why spirits are here and all that stuff too. So I I think that having those personal connections with people is really important to us.
So you really, shift the paradigm for them. That's
Right.
that's.
Not necessarily. It happens. I don't want to take credit for that. I don't think we should at all.
I'll take
That's
credit,
probably
Fred.
inappropriate.
It's like,
But I think that we provide a safe place for that to happen, and if it happens, we're there for it, and we're happy to be there for it.
okay. So a little off the beaten path type of question. Um, if you guys, either you could go back in time to witness one event from the Black Swan or Yorktown in their history, which would it be and why?
Wow. Um, that's a really good question. I think for the Black Swan, I would love to see the house being built. Like the renovations that were made to kind of bring it to where it is today in the 1940s. I think for for me to see like the first phase of that would be really cool to experience.
Yeah, I think that for me, I think being there, for Yorktown's inception, seeing what that was like, kind of seeing, these nuns that walk through this space. I think that is just a very interesting thing. 1951 is the year it opened up, and I think to be able to just be there on that opening day and kind of see those things, I think are very fascinating to the story that, we're way past its closure, 34 years, so past its closure that it's kind of fascinating to have been there, from its inception.
Wow. Yeah, to see it as a hustling, bustling
Yeah,
hospital, people going back and forth,
yeah,
that would be interesting.
yeah.
So in terms of energy, um, I've got like a couple more questions and we can wrap up. But in terms of energy, what advice do you give people who might be sensitive and visit places like Black Swan or Yorktown? How could they protect themselves?
One of the first things I would say is, really ask yourself, is this for me? I think that there are people that they're not really ready for it, and perhaps they need to be in an emotionally healthy place. Try to be in a place that you are not dealing with tons of chaos in your life, that you're going to be at a place where you truly can understand, enjoy, and experience something, and not be haunted by, the fears of the what ifs and these kinds of things. I think you just have to be in the right position to do that. And I think that emotions are rather important to make sure those are in line if you're going to mess with the paranormal, and so that's the biggest encouragement is, look at those kinds of things.
I like it. Okay. So, um, if you were to write a guidebook for people navigating the paranormal world in general, what would be your top three pieces of advice, or just the first couple of pieces of advice for safety and respectfully interacting with the spirits?
I would say, one, say hello, be respectful. I think that's really important. You can't just go up and like start asking random questions like, a jerk. I think you really have to at least say hello. That'd be the first rule. I think the second rule is be respectful. And I think the last rule is to also say goodbye. To say, hey, this is where it ends. Thank you for communicating with you. Give that gratitude. I think that there are people that they forget those things, and sometimes they experience things they don't want to experience based on that they simply didn't tell the spirit, hey, this is the end of the conversation. Thanks for having it. I appreciate you. So those are just the very, very basics.
Yeah,
Hello, respect, goodbye.
yeah. Appreciate it, but please don't follow me.
Yeah.
This is where it ends.
Yeah.
So, wrapping up, finally, what is your vision for Curious Twins Paranormal in the coming years? Are there any new places, services, or experiences you're hoping to add to your offerings? And the flip side to that, do you have anything coming up soon that we really want to check out?
Yeah, I mean, we're really hoping to grow Morbid Travel Guide. That is a big part of what we want to do. Bringing awareness to dark tourism. We've been publishing a weekly blog that we give people a location to visit to check out every week. Of course, Curious Travels, that's a big part of that. The podcast, but we want to see that grow. We want to turn Morbid Travel Guide into like a shop where you can buy books about morbid travel. You can buy books about morbid subjects. We want to also at some point be able to really nerd out and do like a morbid book fair and have
Ooh,
writers and workshops from all over the place come and share and just kind of one up that old Scholastic book fair that we that we used to love so much with a little bit of fun and morbidity and and making that a thing. So we want to grow this market, this understanding of dark tourism. And I think that it's important that we go to these dark places in general because it teaches us, like I was saying at the beginning, that perhaps there's a better way, that there's a way that we can be more respectful, kinder, and create a better future for all of us.
awesome. Awesome. And now, do you have what's coming up next? Anything we can look forward to? Because you guys, I've on your Facebook page, I
Yeah.
follow you on Facebook, and you always have some event popping up, something you feel like,
Yeah.
oh, I
So
can't get out of town for it, but I want to go.
one of the things that we're really excited about is December 5th. We are releasing a special little bonus episode of our podcast, and it follows Krampus. I think all of us are kind of familiar with the idea of Krampus, but what we're going to specialize in this episode is where people can kind of celebrate Krampus in Texas. And so we're going to be talking about where people can check that out, how people can enjoy Krampus for themselves, some of the Texas traditions around Krampus. And at that same day, we're also going to do a VIP, like holiday haunted river walk tour. And so we're going to take people on a tour through the San Antonio River. And we'll be telling them also about San Antonio's history with Christmas. It's a really interesting history. We've been a party city for a long time, and that really connects to how Christmas was celebrated and even banned for a little bit of time in the city. And so we go over all that, and that day it's a special kind of VIP thing because we also are going to give out some merch that day. And so we're going to be
Wow.
giving out some morbid travel guide caps that feature Krampus. And so, if you're interested in that, tickets are available on our website at curiouswins.com. And we're excited to share some of this dark history during Christmas time and how that fits in with the holiday as well.
Awesome. You know what? And I never made the connection. That's good because there are so many German communities that settled so many small towns here in Texas, and then you factor in Krampus. I'm like, oh yeah, those go together so well. It's part of. So yeah, that sounds cool and something my sister. I should tell my sister because she would totally be like, what? When? Let's go.
December 5th.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I really appreciate it. You're gentlemen and scholars. I met you once briefly last year at that event downtown
Yes.
Austin. We actually sat and talked for a few minutes, and I've been telling people, I'm like, yeah, these are really nice guys. I got to go down there and meet them and film there, for the channel. And then I started the podcast. I'm like, I know who got a call. So, and for those of you watching and listening online, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will have links to all of their website, their social media in the video description below. Click on that, follow them, take their tours, and go into the dark side of San Antonio's history. And at the same time, you can appreciate it as well. Fred and Stephen, thank you again so much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Appreciate you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been Beyond the Compass, where travelers and the paranormal meet at the crossroads. Thank you again.